Oh, all right, everybody. Let's just. What are we doing? No picture. We will get to that. 1 second. I can't wait to get back home and actually have my normal setup. This is. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the Yaron Book Show. It's great to have you here. It's a Sunday. Hoping you guys are having a fantastic weekend, and I'm in Southern California. The weather is about as gorgeous as it could be. This is the one thing I miss about Southern California is the weather out there. It's stunning. It's everything's dry. It's not too hot. It never rains. What is it? It never rains in Southern California. Never rains in the summer in Southern California. So you get that. It's pretty much perfect. So that is exciting. You have video now, right? All right. Ali's here. Ali's not always here on a Sunday, so Ali is here. So you know what that means? That means we have a $400 goal, and you guys need to stay sharp so we can get to the $400, and you can't slack off. All right. We have video, we have audio, we have everything going. So I'm not going to have a lot of shows in the next few weeks because I'm traveling. I'm hoping there will be a show on Tuesday. Tuesday. I'm in South Dakota, but I've got the day kind of off. I've got a bunch of work to do, but I don't have anything where I need to go. So I'll try to do a show. So it really depends on the internet, the quality of the internet connection at my hotel in South Dakota. Who knows? Could be great. It could be a disaster. So we'll see then. Um, but we'll see. And then Wednesday, Thursday I'm giving talks. Friday I'm flying. I'll probably do a show Saturday. I might do a show Sunday from Puerto Rico. I'll be back in Puerto Rico Sunday. I think this is the latest. My plans keep changing. I keep changing flights. One of the great advantages of no change fees is I keep shifting things around. Is I on Will the debate with Mackey be live streamed? I don't know. I don't know. Check out the Freedom Fest or the Soho Forum website and see what they say. I don't have any insight to that, but I will be doing a reprieve of the debate with John Mackey, and I'm hoping to convince him to do a third one at the University of Texas in Austin in the fall. Anyway, Sunday night I might be flying to Israel, so I might be going to Israel Sunday night, and then I'll be gone for 2 weeks, and then who knows if I can do shows from Israel, what the internet connection is there, what time of day, will it be in the middle of the night for you, will it be in the middle of the morning for you? I know Sunday is the video show. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, so stay tuned. I just shifted all my flights, so I might have to shift the Q&A show to Saturday, or scrap it and do two in August or something. Sorry about that, but the situation with COVID and Israel and UK is just so mind-bending and frustrating. We'll talk about that a little bit in the Iran Rule Show in terms of in terms of the context for that. But it's so nuts that I'm just trying to get to Israel because I need to see my parents. But the irrationality and the lack of ability to plan and everything is very, very, very frustrating. So anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, so once I'm in Israel and UK, we'll see if I can do shows and we'll see what kind of internet connection. It's amazing that this hotel here in Orange County, I'm doing this over Wi-Fi. It's been superb. It's been excellent, and that's very unusual to have this quality of an internet connection. So I wish all hotels were as good as this Marriott in Orange County. Go figure. Do I have to quarantine? So, God, you really want to know the complexities? Anyway, today I'll tell you in a minute. But today we're doing Iran Rules for Life, and the theme of today is be a seeker of truth. So Iran's rule for life today is be a seeker of truth. So today we're going to talk about truth, but more importantly, we're going to talk about seeking truth and what that means and what's involved and what is engaged with that. Anyway, let me quickly give you an update on kind of what it takes to get into Israel right now. So Israel is seeing a spike in COVID cases, right? Not necessarily hospitalizations or death, although those are slightly higher, but nothing to be hysterical about, nothing to worry about. They're not locking down or anything, but they are, very, very careful in terms of who they let in and who comes in. So in order to get into Israel, I need to do a PCR test before I leave, and I have to show the airline at the airport the result. So I'm going to have to find a lab in Rapid City, South Dakota, to get my PCR test. I can get the result in time to be able to show them Sunday night that, look, I'm negative. Then when I get to the airport in Israel, in Tel Aviv, I have to do another PCR test. Then I have to isolate myself for at least 24 hours. Well, technically for 2 weeks. But so I have to isolate myself. I cannot isolate myself at a hotel of my choosing. It has to be at one of their designated motels where they supervise you, which I don't want to do, or at a family residence, which is like stupid. So now I'm going to go to my family, and if I'm infected, infect all of them. But anyway, so I might stay at my sister's for one night. So then I have to do in order to get out of quarantine, I have to do an antibody test. And if the PCR test that I did at the airport turns out negative, and the antibody test that I do that morning after I get there turns out to be positive, then I can leave the quarantine. Then I'm free to go. So I think all the tests will work out fine. It's just the hassle of coordinating, booking, arranging, figuring out how to get to my sister's. You can't take public transportation. You cannot rent a car. I'm not allowed to rent a car. I can only rent a car after I'm out of quarantine. So I guess I have to, anyway, it's a bit of a nightmare. And the whole thing is just bizarre. And then to get into England, all these criteria, depending on what country you're coming from, how many days did you spend in that country? Is it red? Is it green? Is it magenta? Whatever the other color is. Now they're accepting vaccines from the U.S. They're counting them. So on and on and on on and on it goes, and it's frustrating. All right, but if you want to travel and if you want to go, and I haven't seen my parents in 2 years, and they're getting old, so it'll be good to go over there and see them. Who knows when? Who knows? Who knows? So I'm going to head out there and do the Israel thing. Hopefully we'll do a couple of talks in Israel. So if anybody's listening who is in Israel right now, I will try to let you know about talks in Israel. My book is coming out in Hebrew. So Free Market Revolution will be available in Hebrew. And, we should be doing at least one talk. I'm hoping two while I'm in Israel. Hopefully they'll allow gatherings. I don't know. I'm winging it at this point. And then, of course, I also plan to do one event in London. I actually have to let Razi know that the dates have changed. But I also plan to do one event in London. So that all should be fun. Good. Best Fan Kag says, it sounds easier to go to space with Branson than travel there. Yes, but then to come back to the United States, even though I'm vaccinated, even though I have a vaccination card, I need to get a PCR test again. Just like, I'm going to get like 72 PCR tests over the next few weeks just to be able to go places and do things and everything. And I think Branson is easier to go to space. It's a little bit more expensive, a little bit, a few more zeros at the end to go to space. But other than that, okay. What are we doing here? It's a fine line between an unplanned event and screaming outside a bookstore. Not sure what you're talking about, Scott. Sorry. Let's see. We are talking. Yes. So okay. So today we're talking about Yaron Rules for Life. This is episode number 6, part 6. If you haven't heard the first 5, just I'll create a playlist. I don't think I've created the playlist yet, but I will create a playlist for the Rules of Life series. I expect there to be more than 12, less than 100. I have no idea how many there will be at the end, but maybe I'll keep doing them for a while. We've got now a sponsor for these, so an anonymous sponsor, and I'll keep doing them for the sponsor for as long as we keep going. So, reminder, of course, when we start Rules for Life, there's always the context. What is the context for the Rules of Life? What is the purpose? What is the guiding rule, right? What is the guiding rule? And the guiding rule is always take your life seriously. The guiding rule is always live with a capital L. Your life is the standard. Your happiness is your purpose. Your moral purpose is to achieve your happiness. Your purpose of living is to live and be happy. And in that sense, all rules for life are centered around Rand's ethics, Rand's morality, the system of values and virtues that Rand develops as her ethical system. And all of them are just applications. So all we're talking about here is applications, putting in different words, in different contexts, in different applications of the fundamental principle of live your life to the max, survive, thrive, achieve happiness. Using your own life as the standard. So it's all about being selfish. Be selfish. Be consistently selfish. Don't compromise on selfishness. Don't sacrifice. Sacrifice is the compromise of your self-interest. So focus your efforts, focus your mind, focus your efforts on figuring out and then acting on what is truly good for you. Now, what is good for you? And we talked about this when we talked about the virtues, but it's good to remind the fundamental thing that is good for you, the fundamental things that allows you to achieve values. The action that is most important, most crucial for achieving a successful life as a human being is to think. It's to use reason, to apply reason. It's to be rational. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about one aspect of what that means. So today's Rules for Life is be a seeker of truth, a truth seeker. There was a Terry Goodkind book, the title of which was Sword of Truth. And the idea, the philosophical theme, if you will, of the book, to the extent it had one, was pursue truth wherever it leads you, whatever it takes. It's the truth that's what matters. Okay, and we're going to talk about that, talk about how to apply that. All right, quickly, our best friend Hank, thank you for the contribution. Jeff Bannister, thank you. Jacob will get to your question later. Landon will get to your question later. These are all super chats. You can use the super chat to support the show. You can use the super chat to ask a question. If it's under $20, I'll get to it at the end of the show. If it's over $20, I'll get to it at a break. If it's on the topic and over $20, I'll get to it as soon as I can. And of course, the goal today is to raise $400. So help us attain our usual kind of goal in support of the show. And again, since we're going to have fewer shows this week, fewer shows in the next few weeks. We have to make it up in the few shows we have. So if we can do more than $400, if we can get to $1,000, if we can get $800, if we can get $500, all of that is good, because that means we can get the same amount of cash with the fewer shows. So remember doing that. All right, so this is a topic, the idea of seeking truth, that should be, and often, should be self-evident to objectivists, right? I think you all understand the need to be rational. Why rationality is so important, why reason is man's basic means of survival. You get that in OPA, but you get that in life. You get that from observing the world out there. I mean, all the values that exist out there, all the success, all the prosperity, all the achievements are fundamentally achievements of reason. It's fundamentally achievement of the human mind. Even in sports today, particularly today, you look around and you see the amount of science that goes into sports, the amount of thinking that goes into how to use players, where to use players for the play itself, how to train, how to diet, and then how to think about their game. They talk about, basketball IQ. But yeah, you have to study the game. And this is why they look at tape, they discuss, they have strategy, everything out there. Our means of survival as a human species is our mind, is our capacity to observe the world and to abstract principles from it, to abstract concepts from it, to integrate it, and thus to produce new knowledge that can then allow us to reshape reality, to reshape nature, to reshape the world out there, to reshape the atoms that constitute the world out there. So it's all about thinking, using one's mind. And what is the data that the data that one needs? Thinking is one needs information, one needs data. And the data one receives is reality, facts. And it's important that the facts that we use, that the data that we have, is true. Somebody's complaining about an echo. Some of you hearing an echo. One of you is hearing an echo. Pat's hearing an echo. I don't think there's an echo. Shouldn't be an echo. Pat, it might be something in your setup, because I don't think we have an echo. So one of the things that is crucial, a very small echo, very slightly. Yeah, Jacob and Pat now say, Jennifer says there's an echo. Is it an echo or just reverb from the space I'm in? That is muted. Let me just check. That is muted. Sorry, let me just check to make sure we're not where the echo might be coming from. That doesn't look like it's generating an echo. Yeah, I think it's probably reverb just from the room, but let me do one more check. We've got that. What if we do that? Yeah, let me know if that got rid of it. It's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, I don't know why there would be an echo over here. So, all right, let me just do. Oh, that's not working. All right. So it's crucial. If you're going to take reason seriously, if you take rationality seriously, it's really, really important that you focus on, is the material I'm feeding my mind, are the facts that I'm using to analyze, to think, are they true? So it's much more important, I think, as an objectivist, as somebody who's dedicated to Ayn Rand's ideas or to egoism, much more important for me for you to be focused and oriented on reality, focused and oriented on what is true and what is not, than knowing every last detail of the philosophy. And for the philosophy, for example, to be real to you, you have to discover that it's true. One of the challenges, I think, that objectivism, that Ayn Rand presents to people, one of the challenges that we have when we read Ayn Rand, and you read Galt's speech, or you read The Virtue of Selfishness, or you read Atlas Shrugged, is that it's you get all this knowledge. You get all this abstract knowledge. Now, it's concretized in the novels. You get a story around it. But you just suddenly get a world-changing, detailed philosophy that most of us just go, whoa, and we accept it because it makes sense. But to make it yours, to make it true for you, in a sense that to prove it to yourself, you have to then show yourself. You have to, show yourself that it's true. Otherwise, the philosophy stays at a level of abstraction. It stays detached from reality. And you don't apply it consistently. It's hard to apply it consistently. It's hard to apply it to new concretes, new occurrences, because you don't have it fully integrated into your soul, if you will. To fully integrate it into your soul, you need to have an integrated understanding of why it is true. Not just accept that it's true, but understand in detail why it's true. At least those foundational principles that are going to help guide your life. You have to look at it. You cannot hold it as just a floating abstraction, detached from the reality of living. It's not useless, but it's of little use to you as such. The real use of the philosophy is applying it, is understanding it, and then applying it systematically, thoroughly to every aspect of your life. Now, doing that is not easy. Doing that requires constant work. Doing that involves looking out into reality and observing different things and seeing how they connect and how they connect to your abstract ideas and reinforcing it constantly. I think it requires studying the philosophy, but then observing, integrating, thinking about how the concretes of the world out there match these abstract ideas. And to do that, one has to be very, very honest about what one sees in reality out there. One has to be a truth seeker. So step one is, with regard to seeking truth, is you want to go out there and try to figure out what's right. And I think when you figure out what's right, it'll be consistent with this philosophy. But what's important is that it's right. What's important is that it's consistent with reality. It's not you start with philosophy and everything has to fit, and too many objectivists either ignore reality or never do the work. They know the abstract theory, they don't know how to apply it. And when there's a new application, when there's something different, when there's something controversial, many of them can't do it. They can't apply it. They revert to belief systems that they had before they were objectivists. Objectivism requires constant integration and constant connection to reality, seeing why it's true. And here, I highly, highly, highly recommend a series of lectures by Leonard Peikoff, a course that he gave years ago in the mid 1990s, late 1990s, called Objectivism Through Induction. In Objectivism Through Induction, he shows how you can induce the ideas, how Ayn Rand might have induced the ideas. She definitely induced them, but we don't know exactly the path in which she induced them, but he gives some suggested paths by which you can induce the principles of objectivism from reality. So again, if you're a truth seeker, the focus is reality. It starts with reality, ends with reality. What's true is evaluated. You can evaluate by, can you point to it at the end of the day? Can you show it? So listen to, it's up on YouTube. It's free. Philosophy, Objectivism Through Induction. It's the best way to really, I think, see, how Ayn Rand must have come to these ideas through observing the world, through the knowledge of the world out there. That it's not possible otherwise. Okay, so that's one aspect that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to emphasize that what I'm interested in, people who are asking questions, people who want to understand, people who want to figure something out, even if they don't get or accept all of objectivism. What I really value is people who are seeking truth, rather than people who can mouth objectivism to me, or mouth Ayn Rand, or quote Ayn Rand. If we value our lives, if we value this philosophy, then we need to make it our own. We need to integrate it into our own experience. And we need to validate it for ourselves. We can't rely on other people to validate it for us, like Ayn Rand to validate it for us, or Leonard Peikoff. The reason to listen to Leonard Peikoff course is not for him to validate it for you, but for him to walk you through the steps that you would need to do in order to validate it for yourself. Because you need the genius of a Leonard Peikoff or an Ayn Rand to show you how to do it. It's not self-evident. It's not simple. You need that guidance. They are our teachers, all of our teachers. So that is point one that I wanted to make. The second point is talk about the need to the work that's required to figure out what's true and what's not, particularly in the world in which we live. I mean, the world in which we live today, there is so much misinformation, so much distortion, so much information that is filtered through other people's ideology. I mean, even among objectivists, I think there's beliefs and information that they convey that is not first-hand information or knowledge of reality, but is what they think reality should be given their objectivist perspective. Well, we know this of the left and of the right. You know this of politics. COVID is a fantastic example of this. I mean, how do you discover what the truth is when you've got, so many people arguing on so many different levels, opposite to one another, all with their own studies and their own supposed facts, all of them producing slick videos, writing articles. Articles in journals, studies, statistics. In any important realm of your life, in any realm of your life where you are going to take action, It is necessary for you to figure out what's true. And we live in a world right now where it's really difficult to figure out what's true. It is really hard. And you can listen to people like me, but you shouldn't just believe me. You can listen to certain experts, but you need to figure out which ones. And sometimes you listen to two experts and they're completely opposite of one another. And I guess my point about, rule for life is that you have to do the work. At least the kind of work necessary for you to figure out who the experts you should listen to. And even then, you have to hold it in your mind that I hold this position not because I actually know it, not because I actually know it's the truth of it. I hold this because I heard it from somebody I trust. But you never know. They could be wrong. I haven't validated this. Now, you might say to yourself, or you might rationally argue, I don't have time to validate everything I hear. And that's fine. But then you have to hold it as, Yaron said it, I heard it on a show, I trust Yaron. He's usually, it's almost always true what he says, but I don't know it because I have not validated completely for myself. I've not, at the very least, cross-checked it with some other experts or some other data, right? So there's an element to know what you know. Know what you know. So what is it necessary today in order to validate something, in order to come to a conclusion about something? And I mean, this is hard because every time I look at a new area and I look at what's available online, Wikipedia, I mean, unless it's straight facts, straight, something that is uncontroversial, then usually you can rely on basic resources. I used to, when I was a kid, one of my favorite things to do, I was a real geek, right? Favorite things to do was read encyclopedias, right? And in many respects, for a lot of things, reading encyclopedia, reading a basis book about a topic is often, good enough. But in a world in which everything today is questioned, in a world where everything has become politicized, how do you get to the truth? And yet, the truth is crucial. Let's take COVID, for example. Potentially, let's say you're over 65, or let's say you have lung problems, or let's say you're obese, or whatever. You have some health issues. Suddenly there's an echo. I don't know what that is. Suddenly there's COVID can be a life or death issue. If you are selfish, if you care about your life, well, to live, you have to live. So, thank you, Gail. Really appreciate the support. So you have to go out there, and I think it's incumbent on all of us, because our lives are being controlled, our lives are being regulated, our lives are being obstructed in a variety of different ways. If we are potentially susceptible to this disease, our lives could be a lot worse if we get it. What should our position be? What kind of precautions should we take? How do we deal with this? I don't know where the echo is coming from. Sorry, guys. It's weird because some of you hear it and some of you don't, which is strange. But how do you get proper information about it? And one of the really sad things about the world we live in right now, maybe it was always like this. I don't think so, but maybe it was all like this, is because government is involved in everything. it makes everything political. So, what information is disseminated by, for example, the government about the virus is is not only motivated by science, it's not only motivated by, I don't know, the responsibilities that they've taken upon themselves, put aside whether they should have these responsibilities for public health, but it's clearly motivated by politics, by how will this affect my image? How will I look? Do I look like I'm acting? Do I look like I'm engaged? Is this going to hurt me in the polls? Is this going to help me get reelected? What are my constituency going to think of this? All right, let's try something. Is that any? Let me know if that's any better. If that's better, I'm trying to play around with the speaker here, with the microphone here, to see if the sound is getting, if we get the reverb. So let me know. You know that now every decision, because it is politicized, because COVID is an issue of the state, is now involved. Shouldn't be, but it is. Then you can't trust what is coming from the government. Even if it's your candidate, you can't trust it. Because you don't care when it comes to COVID about whether it's a Democrat or Republican. You should care about what? Now there's more echo. Right? Okay, we'll try this. Let me know if this is less or more. We'll keep trying. We'll keep shifting through this. Well, I don't want good enough. I want good audio, and some people are listening to this on just a podcast, and good audio affects whether people listen to it. Alicia's worried about seeking the truth. She's less worried about the echo, so she's worried about you distracting me. So it's politicized, and because it's politicized, you can't trust your people. Let's say you voted Republican. Just because Republicans are talking, it doesn't mean anything, because Republicans, again, are motivated by the same kind of things. They're motivated by getting reelected. They're motivated by what their base will think. They're motivated by how it impacts their other agenda items. And I think at the end of the day, one has to conclude that you just cannot trust politicians to give you valid information about anything where there might be controversy, about anything where there might be disagreement. You just have to discount everything that they say. So now what? Well, with something like COVID, the answer should be, well, scientists. Scientists, are the experts. They know the stuff. They're the ones who should be providing us with information. But here again, what you get is, particularly with COVID, this has happened. Scientists who've been used by certain political groups and politically motivated individuals to present a certain perspective. Look, even science, particularly biology, I think more than any other science, is messy. It's messy. Something like a virus, its impact on the biology of a human being, how it impacts it, what might be the remedies, is complicated. It's not obvious. And scientists disagree, particularly about complex issues. So when you get to a topic like this, you have to accept the fact that being a seeker of truth means that you might not get a definitive answer, but you want to get the best answer that you can. And here I think, in something like COVID, you have to go to the scientists who appear to be most divorced from a political agenda. And again, this requires effort. This requires looking for publications that might cite scientists that are not particularly political. You might look for, science journals, but even there, look at what's happened with climate change and how politicized the science has become. The nice thing, the thing about the virus is that there's not quite the same incentive as climate change. Climate change is an enormous incentive provided by the fact that governments fund the science. With COVID, it's not quite that way. It's an emergency, and a lot of scientists are doing a rush job of figuring stuff out. You've got to get to the best, most qualified scientists working in the field. And you've got to look out for suspicious things. Lone scientific voices that are arguing the opposite of what everybody else. I'm not saying don't listen to them, but try to find something that they say and look more deeply into it and see if you can validate it. And if you can't, I would quickly dismiss everything they have to say because there's no point. There's no time to filter through all this. There are too many of them out there. So, for example, I got lots of these videos about COVID's not a thing, or vaccines are going to kill you, or all this stuff coming in. And I'd listen to some of them, find something where they said something about, something that I knew about. Almost always within 10 minutes of what they were talking about, I could tell that what they were saying was not true, didn't make any sense. And that's it. I dismissed them and went on. And you have to do this a lot because there's a lot of information coming to you. Yeah, Ali is saying we're already 40 minutes in and we're way short of the $400 goal. I don't know where we are. Maybe Ali can fill us in terms of where we are, but way short. I mean, what are we at, $100 or something? So, you guys have to step up here if we're going to get anywhere close to goal. Ali is in distress. She's putting these emojis of distress up on the screen. Thank you, Apollo. I really appreciate that. And I will get to answering all these questions in a little bit. So you've got to screen people out. You've got to be able to identify falsehoods and move on quickly and not get bogged down. One of the things that are always suspicious to me is when people exaggerate somebody's credentials, right? Like that's always suspect to me. That's always, I walk away, with COVID, for example, they would say things like, world-renowned epidemiologist. And then you Google, world-renowned means means everybody knows them. And you Google them. And, maybe there are a few articles that mention this person and they're not a professor at a particularly good university and they don't have that many papers published and they're certainly not world-renowned. They might be renowned, they might be known, they might be active, but why are they exaggerating? Or Brett Weinstein had one the other day. The inventor of the mRNA vaccine. Really? I mean, just look up mRNA vaccine. Was there one inventor? Is it this guy? Is he the most prominent of all the people who were involved in developing mRNA vaccine? When you look it up, his name doesn't jump out at you. He's not the first one that when you read up about mRNA and you read up about the vaccines, his name shows up. So why inflate the credential? If he's good, then he's good. Why do you have to blow it up? Thank you, best friend Hank. Noel, Apollo again. Something wrong. So dismiss it. You don't have time for the nonsense. I mean, maybe what they're saying is true, but if they're blowing up their credentials, if they're exaggerating their credentials, then I don't have time for you. Don't have time for you. All right, wait, $146, $150, 250 left. So we've got an hour and 50. We've got 45 minutes to get there. So hopefully we will be picking up the pace here at some point. Um, and then, so, you have to figure out what is credible, what is not. Who is promoting these ideas, who is not. And then try to narrow the scope of the people you're listening to in terms of who seem to be experts. And I know it's hard today. I know it's hard because we know that science to some extent has been captured by the authorities, captured by the government, captured by political parties, captured by different, But you have no choice. You're not going to go out and do the research yourself. So you have to read up. You have to look at what's credible. You have to listen to people like me who maybe can help you see through the forest because, I'm good at statistics. I'm not good at statistics. I'm okay at statistics. I'm better than most of you at statistics. That's pretty safe to say. Then you've got to go and listen to people like me who can go through all the statistics and tell you, okay, this is garbage. This kind of makes sense. This doesn't. Right? And you've got to find the credible sources. But again, this is life or death. COVID is life or death. You can't just listen to me. Well, I have Amish. God, I need to get his name right. I have Amish on. So that helps, right? Because he's an expert. This is his field. But maybe you say, oh, those guys they're too objectivist. They're too oriented towards objectivism. And maybe, in particular, I don't know. They neither one of them likes Trump, so that's affecting the way in which they look at COVID. So let me go and do some more of your own research, and you should. Absolutely, you should do your own research. All right, I'm doing my own research. It looks like what these guys are saying makes sense. You still probably don't know this as true. But now you have enough confidence that you can act on it. Now you have enough confidence that you can settle in and say, okay, I know what's going on. I know how my rights are being abused. On the one hand, politically, I know what I need to do to protect myself so I don't get COVID if I'm susceptible to it. Or I know that it's no big deal if I get COVID, probably because I'm young and healthy and take my vitamin D and do all the good things, and therefore I'm fine. So, and you see how it's applicable, right? It's going to determine how you live your life, and it's going to determine how your approach to lockdowns, your approach to the politics of the world. Now that's COVID, right? But we also have, for example, history right now. I think this is one of the things that are most difficult right now. Most difficult for outside of the philosophical political debate. History is being challenged, or history is being rewritten. And it's not being challenged and rewritten off the cuff. It's being challenged and rewritten by academics who are writing books. And it's almost like there's almost nothing sacred anymore. There's nothing that you can say, I know this to be true because now, because now people are saying, no. The United States was founded on slavery, for example. The whole 1619 project. Where there are whole books about this. There's a whole literature now that, if you look up, if you just Google slavery capitalism, just slavery capitalism. God, 90% of the articles are about how slavery made capitalism possible. How it's the wealth of slavery from the slave trade that initiated capitalism. Capitalism wasn't a product of ideas. Capitalism wasn't a product of property rights. Capitalism was a product of the Enlightenment. Capitalism is a product of slavery. And that's everywhere. That's everywhere. And it's articles, and they've got citations, and they've got books, and they've got academics, and they have videos. And if you're young and you're just, this is the history you learn, the work today to figure out what's true is much harder than it's ever been. or at least not ever is a long time. It's much harder than it's been in Western civilization over the last 100 or so years. Now, it's true that history books have always been tainted, have always been, what do they say, the victor writes the history, and the historians are influenced by the philosophy that they hold. But at least most histories of the United States, most histories of the West, most histories of the past were in a particular range. And you could calibrate and you could adjust based on you could read different perspectives and then figure out what made sense to you based on your knowledge of reality, your knowledge of the world. But today, histories are coming out that are way outside of this range, that are indeed turning upside down everything that we know or thought we knew. And it's not completely true that you can say, if it's written today, then it's just untrue. It's just not relevant. Because even if that's true, it's not helpful, at least to the extent that you want to go out there and debate the world. Well, you have to address the issues that they raise. They're not writing this stuff in a vacuum. I mean, it's probably true to say, let's say, for example, of the 1619 Project, that histories written in the past about the United States and its founding and its history downplayed racism, downplayed the evil of slavery, downplayed slavery among the founding fathers, downplayed Jim Crow laws and the oppression of blacks in the South and in the North to a large extent up until the 1960s. And now the response to that is, crazy histories that view everything through the prism of racism. And they're completely wrong. And they're completely distortive. But you have to understand where they're coming from. You have to understand something about them in order to be able to seek what's actually the history and be able to defend the real, actual history, what actually happened. And of course, history is very difficult because, you don't document everything that happens. Somebody makes a choice about what is important and what is not important, what to include in a history book, what not to include in a history book. How all of that is filtered through what the author believes is important. And what the author believes what important is determined by their philosophy, by their view of the world. All right, there's still an echo. Okay, I keep trying. And yet, it's your responsibility to your own life, to yourself, to figure out what you think the truth is. Or to realize that you're not sure, but what you think is likely true. And what you think is reasonably likely enough so that you can function based on it, given that sometimes you just don't have the time, the resources, or the knowledge to discover what's really true. All right, so we've dealt with two pretty abstract areas, but this idea of seeking the truth is much more, is in everything in your life, right? It really is in everything in your life. It really means don't evade. It means always look, always observe, always seek out facts, always look at the evidence. And you can't know everything about everything. But when something is relevant to your life, then pull the thread, go after the next piece of knowledge and the next piece of knowledge, the next piece of evidence, the next piece of evidence. Discover what's really there, right? For good or for bad. You meet somebody and you want to have a relationship with them, or you like them. Get to know them. But get to know them with eyes wide open. Trying to discover what they are really like, who they really are, what their values really are. Don't let the fact that you like them interfere. It should be the motivation, but it shouldn't interfere with you trying to get to know them, trying to know what their character really is, who they really are. It is hard because if you like somebody, you don't want to discover bad things. You don't want to know, oh, well, turns out he's a cheat. It turns out he's a liar. I don't know. You come up with what it turns out to be. You don't want to know that. You don't want to discover that. But if you do, you do. That's the truth. That's reality. And in the end of the day, we live by reality. Reality is going to impose itself on you whether you like it or not. Your job, your responsibility to yourself is to really figure it out. Seek it out. All right, I mean, there's a lot to say about seeking truth, but I find so many, let's use politics as an example, because you see this so much in politics. So many people today are just tribal about the so-called truth, about what they see as the truth. So, for example, I hate Biden and I hate the left. I despise the left. But I love the truth much more than I despise the left. And the question to me is not looking to see where I could catch the left with all their lies and all their distortions and all that. The focus for me is, what is the truth? What is really happening? What is really going on? Who is really at fault? Who did what? So, for example, the mess in Afghanistan, yesterday we talked about Afghanistan. Biden is withdrawing the troops in Afghanistan. We're running away with our tail between our legs. I'm all for withdrawing the troops, but for different reasons than Biden and any of these other guys. But the reality is that this mess is a Republican mess. It's a mess that George W. Bush got us into, and it's a mess that certainly Trump didn't extract us from. That's just a truthful assessment. And it's important to make those assessments. It's important not to get captured by one mindset, by one view that is, I don't know where this even comes from, but anything Republicans do or anything Trump does is good, everything else is bad. But I see it in people. So many people. Even if you like Republicans and like Trump, it can't be true. You have to validate it. And when you do, you discover that just because objectivists think X doesn't mean you should think X. You need to figure out if X is true. If the preponderance of evidence suggests that X is true. If it makes sense to you based on the facts that X is true. Don't just accept what others have decided, no matter who those others are. So, research, read, investigate, study, think, look, talk to people, investigate. Be on a constant premise of seeking information, seeking facts, seeking reality, and at the same time, integrating it, constantly integrating it. Read a lot, because you're going to get a lot more out of reading than any other medium. And reading gives you the time to integrate. It's slower than just listening. Listening goes fast, harder to integrate. But make it, make it a second nature on anything important. That say to yourself, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to find out what's true here. I'm going to look for the facts. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to study. And this is related to, in a sense, another rule of life, if you will. You've got to be lifelong studiers. You've got to always learn, always study, always discover new stuff, always look for new things that interest you. Always use your mind. Keep your mind engaged. Keep it active. The function of consciousness is to perceive reality. That's what consciousness is. It's the ability to perceive reality. And you have to engage it. You have to focus it. You have to be on that premise. You can't be in a daze. And then you have to know where to look in reality. And the purpose of your cognitive functioning is to understand the world. The whole point of cognition is understanding. And that requires work. Now, work is a wonderful thing. Work is not tedious or bad. Work is a wonderful thing. The primary thing that you should be engaging in terms of work is discovery, knowledge, truth, information, facts, knowledge. You should never stop. You should never just accept the status quo. There's always more to be learned and to be studied. Okay. All right, Ali says there's $169 left to reach a goal. Could be done quickly. Thank you, Thomas. That'll help. So now only $139 to reach the goal, but it is going to require your participation to be able to get there. All right. So be a seeker of truth. Be a seeker of facts, of reality. Don't accept. Don't just follow the tribe. Don't just go where your favorite, commentators told you to go. And to do it in the world today, is particularly hard and easy at the same time. On the one hand, it's hard because you can't trust the main figures out there in the culture who disseminate ideas. On the other hand, it's easy because we have this magnificent research tool called the internet. And sometimes on Google, you won't find what you're looking for on page 1 of your search, but you might find it on page 6 of your search. But it's right there in your fingertips as compared to if you wanted to figure out what was going on in a pre-internet world. So we have these magnificent tools to be able to seek out the truth. Right? So go out there and do it. Don't just accept. So many people just accept. All right, I know, I'm repeating myself now. Okay. Thomas says, very thoughtful show, reminds me of the value of objectivists beyond day-to-day political issues. The philosophy is about your life. Don't let the rottenness of politics discourage you from being a true seeker in all areas. Absolutely. Well put, Thomas. In all areas. And don't get lazy. I think a lot of objectivists get lazy because it's hard. And because the pressure is great. And they get lazy and they just accept what's being said. Oh, Best Friend Hank says $50 is writing on how I answer his question. Where's his question? Which one of his questions? God. Yeah, and they're all less than $50. They're all less than $20 questions. So that's going to be at the end. It's going to be a while before we get to that. So $50 is writing on it. The pressure's on. I'm in intense stress now. All right. Jeff asks, that's a very generous Jeff, 50 Canadian. Dr. Binswanger talked about focus not being tunnel vision, but being aware of everything and then filtering truth from that. Paraphrasing, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what he means by that, but focus is not tunnel vision. But it is true that you have to be aware of everything relevant. it's not really possible, and it's not recommended to be aware in awareness of everything. You want to be of everything relevant. So the filter is relevance. And so you want to go broad. You don't want to go narrow in the sense of tunnel vision. You never want to be tunnel vision. You want to broaden and broaden and broaden the scope that you're looking at up to the point where, okay, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant to the problem that I'm facing, right? You want to cross the street, just a simple. You want a pretty broad vision because cars can come from anywhere, but you don't want to have to look behind you and look, because that's irrelevant, right? You want to narrow the scope to what's relevant. Okay, this sphere where cars might come from, that's where I'm going to focus my attention. So it's absolutely the case that focus does not mean narrow. Focus does not mean tunnel vision. But focus does mean, and it requires effort to say, some things are relevant to this decision process, and some things are not. So, it's very easy. You're looking for content on COVID, and you could go down all kinds of rabbit holes about diseases and about the history and about all kinds of things. And yet so many of them are not relevant. And I find myself having to do this constantly, is focus. Focus means get rid of the irrelevant. Because yes, all of it is interesting. I find, one of my biggest problems in life is I find so many different things interesting. Right? So much. I mean, history to me is fascinating. I could just read history, but there's no end to reading history. There's so much history one could read. And you've got to, if you've got an assignment, I want to do X, you've got to be able to narrow it down, not to tunnel, but narrow to relevant, all that's relevant. And within all that's relevant, you now slowly start filtering to the things that are most important, that are most relevant, that are most going to help you discover what is true. All right, Jeff writes, I've deemed my safety as more important than my rebel stance in trying to get J&J into Canada. Good. I think that's a good decision. The Delta and Lambda variants are too risky, and with masks off, I don't know who is who now. I got the first Moderna shot. I think that's a good decision, Jeff. Although I think Delta is not very deadly. I don't know about the Lambda, but the Delta is not very deadly. It's very contagious, but not necessarily very deadly. But, if you can avoid having a bad flu, which a lot of people have when they get the Delta or some of the other variants, and if they're not vaccinated, I can't remember how old you are and how susceptible you are, but why not get the vaccine? It's the one thing we can say about the vaccines at this point is how unbelievably safe they are. I mean, tens of millions, I don't know if hundreds of millions of doses have been given already. And the number of severe, severe side effects is too small to enter cognition. It's just not relevant in the big picture. So absolutely, I'm glad you're getting vaccinated. I think it's a good strategy because even if you get corona and the vaccination doesn't prevent you from getting it, you're likely to get it in a very mild form, which will not be bad at all. Okay, Deborah writes, I had to face an unpleasant truth about my husband, which led me to divorce him. It was terrible at the time, but I'm so much happier now and so glad I did the hard right thing. Reality is never the enemy. Absolutely. And some of the hardest things to do is to seek out truth in personal relationships, because we have so much built up on those personal relationships, particularly if it's a marriage, and if it's a deeply emotional love relationship. You got a lot invested in it, both from a material perspective, money, house, children, maybe, pets, whatever. And from a spiritual perspective, time, memories, emotion, a lot of emotion tied up. And when that other person is so part of your life, then suddenly to discover that you have been fooled, that they are not what they really are, is devastating. It's devastating. And yet, it is reality. It is the truth. And if you're a truth seeker, you overcome the difficulty, you overcome the harshness, you overcome the emotions screaming at you, don't do it, don't break up with him, you've got too much invested in this. And what does that mean? It means you're an egoist, right? You commit yourself to you, to your long-term health, to your long-term value, to your long-term well-being. And part of that is that you do not accept dishonesty. You do not accept fake. You do not accept the unreal. You are committed to reality, which is the essence of being an egoist, of being a rational egoist. The essence of rationality is a focus on reality, a commitment to reality. All right. Andy writes, are broad measures, mass imprisonment, collateral damage, ever justified in the defense of individual rights and order? Or do principles dictate that such violations are ultimately self-defeating of rights? Well, you have to give me more of a context, but I can't imagine a context in which mass imprisonment is justifiable. But certainly collateral damage is justifiable. Collateral damage happens, even in police action, never mind in military action. So, in defending individual rights, sometimes in violence has to be engaged in order to defend individual rights. Sometimes that's the case. When violence is being engaged, it is often the case that innocents will lose their lives. Even innocents, truly innocents. And that's just a reality. But it's unselfish to say, because there might be people who lose their lives while I defend myself, while I defend my rights. I'm not going to defend my rights. That's self-destructive. That's the negation of the value of you. If a bunch of innocent people have to die so that I can stay alive, when it's not my fault, the bad guys are chasing me down the street, and I could just, okay, kill me so that you don't hurt anybody else. No, I'm going to fight back. And if bystanders get shot, it's sad, but it's the fault of the person trying to kill me, not my fault. I'm not going to stop defending myself. If another country attacks you, then you have to defend yourself, and you have to do whatever is necessary to defend yourself, because your life is the standard, not theirs. And while you don't purposefully, intentionally, not purposefully, intentionally is not the right word, you don't arbitrarily, for no reason or purpose, kill people. Sometimes killing people who are relatively innocent is necessary for protecting your own individual rights, protecting the individual rights of your own soldiers, of your own children, of your own citizens. So absolutely sometimes, so you should never violate rights. But collateral damage is not the violation of rights. That is, you who are defending values are not the one that's violating rights. The person violating the rights is the person who initiated the force to begin with. And that person is the person you're defending yourself against. Evil. So you're in defense, you're not violating rights. I mean, you could be, but you shouldn't. But collateral damage is not an example of rights violated. All right, Deborah writes, what is a hard truth you have faced and what happened as a result. Well, I mean, the simplest one is the hard truth that I was wrong pretty much about my whole assessment of the world before I read Atlas Shrugged. And Atlas Shrugged kind of woke me up. Atlas Shrugged slapped me in the face and forced me to face truth, right? To face reality, to face facts, to face that the philosophy, the ideology that he'd brought up on, that I had bought into, that I'd been committed to, that I was willing to die for, that I was going to volunteer into the army for, was wrong. And that there was this alternative that was right, but that I now had to commit myself to figuring out why it was right. I knew the other was wrong. That I could tell immediately upon reading Atlas Shrugged. But what was right, and why was Ayn Rand right? Ayn Rand seemed right. Atlas Shrugged seemed right. And I think for a long time, I lived as if I knew it was right when I didn't. But then at some point, I had to do it. So yeah, so Ayn Rand was the first, the first big revelation, if that revelation is the wrong word, but the first discovery that, man, was I wrong on a big scale, about pretty much everything. Tessa writes, perhaps because I read Rand late in life, but I was so disappointed when Keating showed Rourke his artwork and Rourke told him it was too late. Keating was so young. Is it really a point in age? Is it really age? I guess. Is there really an age where you cannot change? In certain things, yes. In certain things, yes. At a certain point, you have built up so much of who you are, of what you are, that there is just no way for you to undo what you've done. There's no way to reprogramming all the programming. It doesn't mean you can't be better. It doesn't mean you can't improve. It kind of means, but let's say for an artist, to be a great artist, to be really good at art, there's so many connections you have to make. And those connections in your mind, in your brain, and they have to be reinforced over and over and over again. And they have to connect to your soul, to who you are, because art is a reflection of who you are. And you have to practice the skill. So just the technique. Imagine you decided at age 30, let's say age 30 or 40 or 50, that you wanted to be a great violinist, and you started practicing the violin. Just in terms of the sheer skill involved, you probably won't be able to do it. The brain is far more plastic, far more malleable, far more open to doing new things when we're young. So to creating those connections that make it possible for you to play the violin or the piano at such a high level, it's just probably as much practice as you do. Probably from a certain age on, you just can't do it. Just can't. Okay. It's easier, although not impossible. It's easier to learn languages when you're young, but you can learn them later on, but you probably won't be as good at it than if you'd learn them young. But the deeper point is, one of Ayn Rand's really interesting points and important points, and a point that is part of kind of the rules for life, is that you are responsible for shaping your own soul. You're responsible for making you who you are. And that happens through the choices and decisions and knowledge and just the way you live and the way you think. For example, if you're a truth seeker when you're young, everything is going to be a lot easier. Certainly being a truth seeker later on in life is going to be much easier. If you're curious, if you're engaged, if you're focused, to suddenly decide at age 40 to read Ayn Rand at age 40, when, let's say you've been not a truth seeker your whole life, and let's say you've just let stuff happen, and your mind is a mess, and the knowledge in your mind is a mess, and you read Ayn Rand and you go, yeah, this is true, I need to start trying to validate it. It's so much harder. It's so much more work. It's going to take you so much longer. First of all, because you've got a lot more crap inside, a lot more bad connections, a lot more bad integrations, and now you have to undo those. Now, it's still amazing to do it and important to do it, but it's going to be harder. And your ability to achieve certain things is hampered. The earlier you start thinking rationally, the earlier you start seeking truth, the earlier you start being rational and honest and productive and just, the easier it's going to be to integrate all of those into who you are and into what you do and into every action that you take. And that's truth. That's just reality. And for those of you who discover Ayn Rand late, it's better late than never. But it's not as good as if you discovered it early. Not just because of the waste of time, but also because of the damage that waste of time has done. And it has to have done, because you used a bad methodology, bad epistemology. You've integrated or internalized certain bad ways of thinking, bad attitudes towards morality and other things like that. That makes sense, hopefully? Without discouraging you, because that's not my intention. All right, where are we here? What are we doing, Allie? $331, $332. We're not going to have beeping. Okay, $332. So that's $68. We're short. We can certainly do $68. Somebody can do $68 out there. I know that's possible. Don't leave Allie disappointed. I've still got a bunch of like $5 questions to answer. That should give you plenty of time to think up of a good question and to put $68 in that question, or to think up of a question, a series of questions, $20 each. That's, 4 of those questions were done. We're over 400. Of course, you can also do a series of $100 questions, and then we'd be blowing our goal out of the water and building up some reserve for all the shows I'm not going to do. One of the things, I'll just tell you this, one of the things that I was debating today was, since I'm going to have so few shows, should I skip a Yaron Rules show and do a show on politics, which I know more people watch, and therefore, A, I would get my numbers up in terms of viewership, and B, I'd get the dollars up, because more people usually means more dollars. But I decided that it was important to do a Yaron Rules for Life show. I hadn't done one in a while, and it's important for us to get that. And I know many of you really, really value these kind of shows, so I decided to do that show. But anyway, I think these shows are of value, and if they're of value to you, then value for value. You can contribute to the show as an expression of how much you value these kinds of shows, particularly today, and for not doing a political one. If you love the Yaron Rules for Life, as Ali says, then show the love. All right. Garrett asked $20 question. Thank you, Garrett. When one realizes they've done something they couldn't justify forgiving someone else for doing, how does one justify forgiving oneself for whatever it is? Can they, or even should they? How does one find a way forward? Well, I think there are very few things that one under no circumstances can forgive somebody for. Taking a life, for example, murder, is something that you cannot forgive somebody else for. It's just not forgivable. But most of the things, with the right attitude and the right level of restitution, one can forgive. And this is true of self as well. Let's say you cheat on somebody. Well, there's no excuse for that. Let's say you're married and you cheat on your wife. But coming clean on it, committing not to doing it ever again, recognizing, maybe going to see a psychologist or whatever, recognizing why you did it, what caused you to do it, what in you need to improve, you need to get better. But the main thing is, but really coming clean, apologizing. I think forgiveness is possible under those circumstances if it's authentic, if it's real. Right? Lying, admitting to the lie. If somebody's lost money because you lied or lost something because you lied, compensating them for it, undoing whatever damage you've done. So I think you can forgive other people for many bad things that they've done, but it really involves forgiveness is important, but only if the other party is really understands what they did wrong, rectifies what they did wrong, takes action never to do it again, and compensates for damages. Then I think forgiveness is fine. Because most things like that are reversible. They're not, like murder, the reason murder is unforgivable, because it's irreversible. You can't bring that human being back. And that's it, you're done. You're over as a human being, you're over as a life if you kill somebody else, if you murder somebody else. But most other things, I mean, violent crime generally, I'd say. It's very hard to come back from violent crime. I mean, I'm not talking about, okay, slapping somebody, that's bad enough, but really beating somebody up or raping somebody. That's, I can't imagine forgiving somebody for that. But most other things, yeah, Thomas says rape. Yeah, rape, assault, things that are physically brutal. I think for most other things, one can at least can do things that can earn one, hopefully, forgiveness. Whether one gets it or not is a question. All right, Carolina stepped in with 500 Mexican pesos. I'm not sure how much that is, but it's not a trivial. It's real money. And Ian and Alejandrina will do the math, and I think we're over 400. I wouldn't be surprised if we're over 400. Thank you, Carolina. That is very, very generous and appreciated. We've got some $20 questions. Let me get to those. $19.99, but I count those as $20. $25. Thank you, Carolina. $25 is a huge help to get us to our goal. I think we're, basically there. So we're just over $400. So thank you. All right. Andrew asks, successfully guilted into adding $20 question. That was not my intent. I don't want to use guilt. I want to use value orientation. Rand wrote extensively that Nathaniel Brandon's emotional repression led to dishonesty. Any thoughts on the effects of emotional repression on the truth? Yes, I think it's a great question. I have to think about it a little bit, but I think it's a great question. I think that emotions are very important tools to knowing about yourself. They're very important to giving you signals about challenges, issues, problems, or values, or positives. Now, they're fallible signals. And since they're not cognition, they require you to apply cognition to them to fully understand them. But emotions give you, you can't know oneself. One cannot know oneself without being in touch with one's emotions, without feeling them and ultimately understanding them and embracing them. When you repress them, which basically means I'm either not going to feel anything. So working is to eliminate them so you don't feel anything. Stuff happens and you get no signal. It's very destructive to your, one of the reasons to pursue your values is because if you achieve your values, you'll feel good. It's going to be fun. One of the reasons to be good is that you achieve happiness, which you achieve a state of joy. A good state, a state where you feel good. But if you feel nothing, then it's very hard to motivate yourself to achieve your values. And it requires motivation. We just talked about seeking the truth and how hard it is. Well, if every time you seek the truth, instead of having that, every time you achieve knowledge, instead of having that flood of, yes, this is great, I've just discovered something about the world, and you have an emotion, it's just cold. Nothing happens. Okay, I got the truth. I solved that puzzle. Next. What's next? It's not motivating. It's not fun. It's not interesting. You don't get that feedback. You don't get that energy. So to be motivated, to have the energy to be good, you need also to feel what it's like to be good. It feels good to be good. But if you don't feel good to be good, why be good? And if you don't feel bad when it's bad, and because you're not letting yourself feel it, because you're repressing those emotions. So you lose the motivation. You lose the motivation to pursue values. You lose the motivation to be an egoist. You lose the motivation to pursue the truth because you don't have that feedback mechanism. And you don't see, one of the things about objectivism, right? The moral is the practical. The practical is the moral. But if the moral doesn't feel practical, you do what's right and you suffer. You're just going to stop doing right. If your emotions are completely screwed up, in a sense that they're going opposite or they're not there at all, it's going to be very difficult to stick to a path. And why stick to it, right? If it doesn't lead to happiness, what's the point? And it's interesting that Nathaniel Branden would be repressed because he was, of course, a psychologist and he was all about knowing your emotions. But yes, I think he was. And if you read his book, I think you can see in his book his own repression and his own confusions and his own just the fact that he was acting, the fact that he was on a stage. He wasn't feeling, he wasn't living. This is why I say, Yaron's rules for living, the number one rule is live. And that means be an integrated whole, embrace your life, embrace your values, and know your emotions, and know who you are, what you're about, and what motivates you, and what's exciting. Be alive. And people who knew Nathaniel, he was cold. He was a cold fish. And he treated people badly because his values were divorced from reality. And part of the connection there is emotions. Emotions are part of that connection between you and reality in terms of at least motivation, in terms of response to. If you're not responding to reality, then why focus on reality? Why do anything? So I think he acted repressed. I think he looked repressed. I think which is really interesting, if Ayn Rand was more observant, psychologically observant, she was very psychologically observant about the culture, very psychologically observant about certain human beings. But with Nathaniel Branden, somehow she had a blind spot to him. She clearly had a blind spot to him. If you, I mean, his books are often very, very good. But if you read his book about his relationship with Ayn Rand, you can see what a screwed up human being he was. You can see all his psychological problems. He lays them out on the page. And you can still admire his writings about psychology, which many of them I think are very good. Not all of them, but I think many of them are very good. But he, in many respects, exemplifies the problems that he identifies in the books. He needed to treat himself first and foremost. All right, let's see. Ian Gilmore says, $20 for a Rules for Life show. Did you see Taleb did a paper video on Bitcoin arguing that the long-term value is zero? Also hoping the Shermer video comes out. He's needed to have his Iran mistakes corrected for a long time. I asked him when the video was coming out, Shermer, and he said August 7th, I think. And I'm going to see him this coming week. So I'll bug him about it, but at the latest, it'll be August 7th, maybe sooner. But that's what he told me. I don't know why he's waiting so long to release it. I thought he was going to maybe decide not to release it for any reason, but no, he says he's going to release it. It's just August 7th. Okay, Deborah says, maybe I'm psychologizing, but do you think Branden was a sociopath? They can be very charming and deceptive. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't really understand what sociopaths are, and what. So I don't know enough about it. I've read a little bit about sociopaths. It sounds like they really do exist, but are there degrees? I don't know. It would be complete pure speculation. He was obviously super smart. He obviously, at some level, could deal with emotions because he dealt with other people's emotions as a therapist. I don't know. Joe asked a two-part question. I recently had my last day with my old company, and my first day with my new one is Monday. The job itself is similar. My departure was much sadder, and I am much less excited about the new job than I anticipated. I know for a lot of reasons the move was the right one for me. Is this normal for making a big change like this? Or does it sound like I'm conflicted somehow? I haven't been able to figure it out yet. I think it's normal. I think it's just nerves. So you've taken the plunge. You did it. You decided what the right path is, and you were brave enough and you were courageous enough to engage in it. But by doing it, you've now put yourself in a position of uncertainty because you don't know how well it's going to go in the new job. You have reason to think it's going to go well. You have reason to think that this is going to be an improvement. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken the step. But you've gone from a position of knowledge and of certainty to a position of uncertainty, and that's going to create anxiety, and it's going to create stress, and that is reasonable because of the level of knowledge has changed, right? The level of certainty has changed, and now it's going to take you. So you need to be fully committed to the second job. It sounds like you are. You took the step. Now you just need to embrace it and jump into it and see what happens. But don't sabotage it, right? So the worst thing is to sabotage it because you're too anxious. Try to recapture the excitement. Try to recapture the things that led you to make this difficult decision, right? And do it. And hopefully, as the uncertainty starts coming down because you'll be engaged in the job and you know what's happening and you'll meet the people and you'll get to like them and the job will be fun, all of that will go away. and every day will vindicate the decision that you make. Right? It's likely to be what happens, but it takes time. It takes time. And jumping from, it's like, I can't remember who it was that said before, they discovered something unpleasant about their husband, they got divorced. I'm sure that even though it was the right thing to do, get a divorce, it was super stressful. Because, okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to be without this person who I've spent a lot of my life with and a lot of time with? How am I going to be alone? Am I going to find somebody else? What's the world going to be like? How is my day-to-day going to be? A lot of uncertainty. And once you get over that uncertainty, once you figure out what your path is in life without the partner that you left, everything is much better and you're happier. But there's, I'm sure, a period in which, oh God, did I make a mistake? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to do? Completely natural. Completely natural. All right. This is one of I think the first Super Chat question, but it wasn't a $20 one. So now I'm doing the non-$20 questions. Rand speaks a lot on posture and a physical presence. In the novels, I don't think she mentions that in her philosophical writings, unless I'm wrong. Might be wrong. Does this come from your ego, self-esteem, or have you had to practice it? Squaring shoulders, etc. Well, I have terrible posture. I am a sloucher. I have rounded shoulders. I don't have good posture at all. It's probably the cause of much of my back problems, which I've had most of my life since I was a teenager. You have to practice it and work it. I think the self-esteem is not that if you've got self-esteem, you stand up straight. I think the self-esteem motivates you to practice it and to work on it. So I try to work on it. I do Pilates, which helps with posture and pulls your shoulders back and tries to strengthen your core and get you to stand up straight and all of that. And it's still hard for me. My natural tendency of my body is to slouch. And it's always been like this, even when I was a kid. I don't think slouching is necessarily a feature of low self-esteem, but it requires work because bad posture, sitting badly, standing badly, will cause you physical harm. So it's in your self-interest to fix it. And in a sense, you need the self-esteem to fix it. You need the confidence. You need the knowledge that you're worthy of the effort to do it, so that you can be healthier and you look better, which is a value. But you need self-esteem to do it, to work at it. But it definitely requires work. Does ARI do any outreach to India and China, the world's most populous countries? It's an opportunity to cheaply reach out to a target audience. Yes, very much so. In particular, I'd say in the past, 15 years, I'd say in China. China has all of Ayn Rand's books now translated into Chinese. It has a couple of my books translated into Chinese, including Equal is Unfair and Free Market Revolution. They kept the word revolution in the title. I have done lecture tours in China and been invited to speak there and spoken at universities there. I think today, with the level of authoritarianism in China, it's going to become more difficult. But we have essay contest entries from English-speaking Chinese schools, and we advertise the essay contests in English-speaking Chinese schools. But the answer is yes. There used to be at one of the big universities in Beijing, Renmin University, there was an Ayn Rand Society of professors. I don't know if it's still around because with the clampdown on ideas that are contradictory to the powers to be, some of those professors might have been silenced, and maybe the Ayn Rand Society ceased to be active. But they are there. The professors who are part of that society are there, to the extent that they're allowed to, they promote Ayn Rand. And remember, the books are there. Atlas Shrugged is available in Chinese. It sells in the bookstore, as are most of Ayn Rand's other books. With regard to India, India is easier in the sense that they speak English. The books have always been there. It's always been a good seller in India. We have a lot of essay contest entrants in India. I haven't made it out there to speak, primarily because I haven't been invited, and it hasn't been this combination of people inviting and interest and organization and stuff, which happened in China. There was these professors who were really interested in it, and we connected with the think tank there that was really interested. That hasn't happened in India. But India is very active when it comes to objectivism, and there are institutions in India promoting Ayn Rand, promoting her books primarily. But I'm definitely interested in doing more in India if there are opportunities to do more in India. So for those of you listening from India, if there are ways in which you can think of how we can do more in India, we're definitely interested. Joe asks, it's the same reason science classes use controlled lab experiments to demonstrate the reality of an abstract principle. Yes, this is the idea of truth. Without it, you might as well be accepting the word of God or Kant. Yes, you've got to experiment. You've got to look into reality. You've got to find your abstract ideas in reality. You've got to find their validation in reality. And not artificially so. Not, again, you're a truth seeker. You're not a validation seeker. So if you can't validate them in reality, then it might not be true. And you have to accept that. And you have to go into it knowing that the judge is reality, not your abstract commitment, your commitment to abstract ideas. In a country with no regulation, should a country force people to have insurance? If you don't have insurance, you can hurt other individuals. No, I don't think you force people to have insurance. Again, the market will force you to have insurance. So, for example, if I'm a supermarket, I'm not going to buy food from a food manufacturer who doesn't have insurance, because I know the role of insurance. And if it turns out they sell me something bad, I want to have a claim against them, and I want there to be backup. So the market enforces the existence of insurance. As I said earlier, a bank won't give you a mortgage unless you have insurance. So you can't get a mortgage. You could buy with cash and not have insurance, but then that would probably force you to go bankrupt if something bad happened. So the point is, we cannot create, and we shouldn't want to create, and there's no way to create a risk-free society, a society in which there's no risk, and nobody ever gets hurt, and accidents don't happen, and bad people. You got to do what you can to get rid of bad people through the criminal justice system. You gotta trust the market, and we'll do a show on why people don't trust the market. You gotta trust the market to minimize risk for a given return, right? Like in finance, there's risk return. So there is in everything in life. You cannot achieve anything if you're not willing to take on risk. And then the question is, what's the right balance? And the best way for the right balance is for individuals to make decisions about that, to be aware of the risk-return trade-offs that they are making, and for the marketplace to price those things. And that happens beautifully in a market. The idea that it wouldn't happen in a market is bizarre to me. I'm sitting here at the window looking out onto a chunk of Orange County, and like there's like a strip mall across. And the richness that the market has created, just its ability to facilitate the goods and services that we all desire and want and are willing to pay for, and to do it so effectively and efficiently and productively. I'm just looking at trucks delivering stuff to a supermarket here to Vaughn's. No central planner could do this. Just a supermarket they couldn't do. I mean, just think about the price mechanism and the self-interested motivations of all the different actors get the produce onto the shelf on time. That, to me, is a million times more important than, okay, so there's some risk involved and maybe there won't be insurance and somebody, and I might suffer. But look how much benefit I'm getting from the marketplace. And regulations subvert that. Regulations undermine that. Regulations reduce that. I don't want to reduce it. I want to get more goodies. Starjet says you can't get car loan without insurance. And if you cancel insurance, they'll call in the loan. So these are market mechanisms in a world with heavy, heavy regulations. Imagine a world with no regulations, where the market was truly allowed to flourish. You'd find innovations and different types of insurance policies. You know, there's an insurance policy like on automobiles that you can buy, that they actually put a sensor on your car, and you pay based on how much you drive. And then there's also one where they monitor how fast you drive and how safely you drive, how much you weave in and out. And they adjust your premium based on stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. All right, James asks, what do you think of ethnocentrism as a group strategy? Seems like it's been successful and outcompeted other strategies for most of human history. Who cares? I think ethnocentrism is a lousy strategy because you're not a group. You're an individual. And ethnocentrism is not good for you as an individual. Ethnocentrism has led to wars. Ethnocentrism has led to destruction. Ethnocentrism has led to devastation. Indeed, it is cultures that have been open to other cultures, open to other ethnicities, open to immigrants, that have flourished and been successful. Read the book Open by Norberg, by, what's his first name? Something Norberg, from Sweden. It's called Open, and you can find it on Amazon. Open societies work far better than ethnocentric societies. Far better. China is a kind of multicultural society, if you will, multi-ethnic society. And in the Far East, it's been by far the best. It's been the richest. It's been the most productive. It's, throughout history. England, not of its own choosing, has been multiple ethnicities, if you will, and through invasion, whether it's the Vikings or the French or others. And then, of course, in the 18th and 19th century through immigration, and people came there. People came there from all kinds of countries. I mean, think about the King of England. The King of England, after I forget, after the death of Charles or whatever, was a German. I mean, the whole line of kings that have ruled England for a long time, all Germans. They're not English, right? William and Mary, right? William was a Dutch. He wasn't an Englishman. He was the king. So England was a relatively open society. Even France. Think about France in the 19th century. Active, thriving, artistic center of the world. Well, everybody was there. Chopin was there, who was a Pole, and Germans were there, and Austrians were there, and people from all over the world were there. I think one of the things that made Austria and Vienna such a powerful place is the openness. Hungarians and Ottomans would come, and Johann Norberg, thank you, Open by Johann Norberg. So it's exactly the opposite. History shows nothing of the sort. Ethnocentrism is what leads to destruction and devastation, and what it leads to the suppression of the rights of individuals. It's exact opposite. It's the exact, and what happens is that people redefine ethnicity to suit their needs, right? So the English are all one ethnicity. Why? Because they're all white-skinned? But they're not, because from the perspective of, let's say, the Middle Ages, they weren't one ethnicity. The Vikings were different ethnicity than the French, who were different ethnicity than the local English, who were different ethnicity than the Scots. Just because they had the same color skin didn't make them the same ethnicity. So no, absolutely, ethnocentrism as a strategy, and there is no such thing as group strategy as a strategy, is devastating, destructive, and anti-reason, anti-science, anti-progress, anti-individualism, anti-freedom. Yaron's deep-seated leftist core is coming through. Yaron's deep-seated commitment to the truth is coming through. And the truth might be unpleasant to you guys, but it is the truth. Anglo-Saxon, Norman, Welsh, Picts, all different ethnicities. And you can monitor. Israel is a thriving country right now because it's multi-ethnic. Ashkenazis and Sfardis, Ashkenazis from different countries, Sfardis from different countries. Oh, Romans, that's right. Romans left some of their genetic and certainly some of their culture in England. So it's just stunning that anybody in the modern world thinks, in America, the United States of America, you think it's the same ethnicity? Nobody in the 19th century thought that Italians and Irish and Germans were the same ethnicity. They hated each other's guts. And look what a success America is. I'm a centrist. I'm not a centrist. I'm not a leftist. I'm not a rightist. I didn't call everybody a racist. I just said ethnocentrism is disgusting. Well, I didn't say that. I said it's a bad strategy for living, and it's disgusting. But I'm not a centrist because a centrist means a little bit of each. No, I'm a purist when it comes to truth. Everybody's over there. Left and right are over there. They're much more similar to one another. I'm over here. I'm on the individualist, capitalist, freedom side. They're on the collectivist, irrational, altruist side. You guys have created a spectrum in politics that is just not real. Left and right are not that different. The only thing that's different is me, is individualism. That's different. Freedom, that's different. Left and right, they're all the same garbage, basically. Yes, Scott has to bring it in, but the left is the bigger threat. Okay, who cares? But the solution is not the right. The solution is us. Us, not us, me. The solution is individualism. The solution is capitalism. The solution is egoism. Who cares? You could argue who's the biggest threat. That's not interesting. What's really interesting is what is the solution. And the solution is not collectivism on the right, not collectivism on the left, not mixed economy of the left, not mixed economy of the right. Solution is freedom, capitalism. All right, I'm going to leave you guys alone. Would you say that science, absent politics, is at its heart the study of metaphysics, a study of the nature of reality? Yes. It's not a study of metaphysics because it deals with the metaphysical. It deals with the metaphysical. It studies the metaphysical. But metaphysics metaphysics is a field in philosophy. So don't confuse. It studies reality. So does metaphysics. They both study the reality, the nature of reality, from a different perspective. One from the perspective of philosophy, and the other from the perspective of science, of the reason why things are the way they are in reality. Anyway, I think that's right. Andrew says, lots of examples of this during COVID. I'm not sure what this is because it was asked a long time ago. By the way, you can still support the show through the super chat. Lots of examples of this during COVID. Hard to know, was HCQ was being pushed by kooks, or did mainstream make it seem kooky to make Trump look bad? I think it was primarily, it was originally, I think, pursued by curious people. There was some reason to think that it might have an impact. But at some point, it became politicized, primarily because of Trump. And then it became something that kooks pursued. And this has happened throughout COVID. One of the damaging things that Trump did was anything he touched, because he was so kooky, was assumed to be kooky, because he said some kooky things about COVID, and therefore was discredited, and sometimes that was not right. So, for example, when he advocated for opening stuff up, after, by the way, he'd advocated for shutting everything down, when he advocated for opening everything up, that was immediately discredited because he'd also advocated for bleach, and he advocated for HCQ, and he'd advocated for other stuff that was completely wrong. And by the way, he'd advocated for what do you call it, lockdowns. And it's not the leftist media. That's reality. I didn't, as soon as Trump says something, I'm going, I mean, this guy's a born liar. All he does is lie constantly. And, you know, I can't take it seriously anymore. And it's kooky, because he was a kook. Would you tell somebody, best friend Hank says, would you take somebody point blank to get your head out of your butt? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if that's the answer that will get me $50 or not, but absolutely. I don't know that I'd use those words. I never have, but I would tell them that in essence, right? And you've got to be, the closer the friend is, the more important it is to tell them that, because some people have their head up their butt. They're not looking at reality. They're examining their own shit, rather than looking at it in reality and looking for truth and examining the facts of reality. Yeah, where is the $50? I think he's gone to mow his lawn or to flip burgers, because that's every time. Whenever I'm doing my show, he's either making burgers or mowing his lawn. Landon says, as a data products manager, I can second Yaron's comment about people misusing statistics. Both sides lie with numbers. It makes my blood boil. All the time they do it. All the time. There he is. He came through. I knew you would. Best Fit Hank just did the $50. So thank you. That is really appreciated. And you knew I would say, you knew what answer I was going to give. You just wanted everybody to be in suspense. Ryan says, hi, Yaron. Get home soon so we can have the balcony show. Can't wait to see your view. Thanks for all you do. It's going to be a while before we do the balcony show. Still renovations. As soon as the renovations are done, as soon as I can get my Wi-Fi to where it needs to be, I'll do a segment of the show on the balcony so you guys can see my view. And it's going to be hard to just, because I have two balconies on two sides of the condo, which have slightly different views, but you'll get a sense of the view from the one balcony. You can get most of the view from there. I'll do it from the good balcony. I have to decide which side of the house is the good balcony. Anyway, we'll do that. This isn't the place. This is a hotel room. This place doesn't have a balcony. It has a roof, a roof with a bar. Michael asks, Florida is steadily removing occupational licensing laws from low-level professions. I don't see any major state doing this. A number of states have done this moderately, but Florida seems to be aggressively doing this. Generally, if you look at states based on economic freedom, Florida is the most economically free. In other words, Florida is the state that regulates businesses the least and has the least occupational licensing laws. Texas, for example, while not having an income tax, has a lot of regulations. So it doesn't score number one. I think it scores 3 or 4 on economic freedom. Florida scores number 1 in economic freedom in the United States, among states. So it's great to see them doing this. This is the good thing. Good things are happening in Florida. Some bad things, primarily some bad things that are happening in Florida, but also some very good things. Don't all conspiracy theories sooner or later make it back to the Jews? Many of them. I don't know if most. I think most, but I don't know if all. You're saying don't all. I think most is probably true. But yeah, you've got to have somebody, if there's a conspiracy, well, somebody's in charge of the conspiracy. Somebody has to be doing it. They have to be devious. They have to be super smart. They have to have a lot of money. They have to be very successful, because it's hard to run the world. The Jews are kind of an obvious candidate. All right, Michael says, humans cannot be happy without meaning. So when you lack meaning in your life, you invent false evils to fill the void. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That is true. And meaning, good meaning, proper meaning has to come from you. Your life is your meaning. Your happiness is your meaning. That's your ultimate purpose. Are you going to respond to Richard Salzman's video critiquing your debate with Sam Seder? What do you think? Why would I respond to anything Richard Salzman ever does? No. I mean, he has earned himself. Justice demands that I ignore his existence. Michael also asks, I noticed Alex Epstein never explicitly mentions objectivism in Ayn Rand while promoting his movement. Why is this? Same with Blake Scholes. I don't know about Blake. I think it's primarily because they don't want to turn people off. I don't think it's hard for people to figure it out. Anybody who does research on Alex will discover it sooner or later. He has me on his show, and he has me as a favorable guest on his show. He comes on my show. I think if you search his bio, it does say he works for the Ayn Rand Institute. But I think he's trying to reach a large audience, and he doesn't want something like, oh, Rand was an atheist, so I don't want to listen to Alex. I don't want to get in the way. But I think, again, anybody who actually does the research will discover it. He's not hiding it. He's just not featuring it so that it isn't a door closer. It isn't something that just can't get in the door because of it. Michael also asks, well, he's asked a lot of these questions. Wait a second. Did I get this one? Yeah, that was also Michael. I heard carbs don't make you fat. It's the combination of carbs and protein that make you fat. Carbs and vegetables are fine. Protein and vegetables are fine, but carbs and protein, no bueno. Huh. I haven't heard that. That's interesting. Carbs and protein. So if you want to eat, if you eat your carbs, eat them vegetables or eat them alone. Eat them by themselves. So if you want to eat potatoes or if you want to eat, I don't know, bread, just don't eat them with a steak. So hamburgers are out because it's carbs with protein. I don't know. I'm not an expert. My understanding is that certain carbs, not all carbs, certain carbs, primarily simple carbs, primarily sugar, but certain types of carbs and grains are bad for you in whatever combination. But I think objectively, I think I'm being objective, and this is truth seeking, right? I don't know that that's the truth. My view is that the field of nutrition is still in its infancy. There is not enough understanding of biology, of cell function, of the microbe in the gut, of what happens to our food, how it gets break down, how the body uses it, how the cells use it. To have a definitive view about diet, it could also be that there is significant differences between individuals, that there is no one diet that's right for everybody. So I do the best that I can, but with the knowledge that I have. But I understand and know that it's partial knowledge, that it's not the truth, that it's not. I don't have certainty with regard to nutrition, and I don't think anybody does. And I think to the extent that people say that they do, go be a truth seeker. Should boys and men never cry? Why? I don't get why men and boys should never cry. Don't understand that. Crying is an emotional response. It's a product of your emotions. It's a product of strong emotions. Do you not want to feel strong emotions? It's perceived as weakness. Okay, but sometimes you're weak. Again, don't repress your emotions. And men repress their emotions. I think the biggest problem with men is repression of emotions. It's why, I think a big problem in Western culture is repression of emotions. It's why alcohol is so big in alcohol is so big in the West. In the East as well, I guess. I mean, alcohol is very, very prevalent, and getting drunk is very prevalent in cultures where emotions are repressed. It's a social lubricant. But it's more than that. It's an individualized lubricant. It loosens you up. It lets you connect to your emotions. You should practice doing it without. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with expressing emotion through tears. So, you know, whether you want to do it publicly or not is a different question. You know, whether you want to expose yourself emotionally publicly is a question. It's that's a different question. But there's nothing wrong with crying. Um, all right. All right. I think we're done. Gail, this is for your original great quote, Yaron, regarding response to head up, but thank you. I didn't realize, I can be funny, but usually it's accidentally. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. So thanks everybody. Thanks for the support. Thanks for all the super chatters. I am planning to do a show on Tuesday from South Dakota. Hopefully the internet will be with us. The internet will be strong, and we'll be able to do the show. And I look forward to talking to you all from there. After that, the next show will probably be from Puerto Rico on Saturday. So have a great week. And if I don't see you, and I'll see you on Tuesday. And if not, have a great whole week, the whole week. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to support the show at YaronBookShow.com/support. Of course, you can do it on Super Chat as well. But the nice thing about the monthly support is it's regular, it's predictable, and it's fantastic. If you want to sponsor a particular topic, you want me to do a show on a particular topic, that's $1,000, and you can write to me at YaronBookShow.com with ideas, and I'm happy to do them if it's a topic I can do. If you want me to review a movie, it's $500. Oh, I owe you 2 reviews. So on Tuesday, I'll review the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I will do that. Charles Bott, if you're there, I will do it on Tuesday. And what else? What else do I want to say? Yeah, I know Thomas Toscanini. I still have. I need a road trip so I can finish the book. I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to it with my wife. So I need a road trip with my wife to finish the book. All right, guys. I'll see you all on Tuesday. Bye.